Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to the first recent reads on Sunday in 2021. Yeah, I know it's already the 17th, but I had to read first before I could make recent reads on Sunday. But I want to talk to you about the first books that I read in 2021, and I hope that you had as good a start into the new reading year as I did. First book of the year. I don't know about you, but I'm always sort of conscious, even though it's stupid, I know. I mean, what's the difference between the 31st of December and the 1st of January? But still, I try to pick a book, and for the longest time, I didn't really know how to choose. And then last year, I started a new tradition. So the tradition is now 2 years old, that I will start the new year with a graphic novel. I don't read that many graphic novels. That's one reason. So I want to at least, start the year with one. And also, my choices of graphic novels, the ones that I'm interested in, that's not that huge a field. If I look at more recent books, so it's not that difficult for me to find something. And this year, 1st of January, I started and I finished on the 2nd of January, read Rosa by Kate Evans. Kate Evans is a British graphic novelist and cartoonist. She was born in 1972. And this book is obviously about Rosa Luxemburg. I don't even know whether you call a non-fiction graphic book a graphic novel. I mean, I don't know shit about all that stuff. So maybe you know how you call a non-fiction graphic book, because it doesn't make sense to call it a graphic novel. But anyway, so this is a biography from birth to death of Rosa Luxemburg. If you're not familiar, Rosa Luxemburg was one of the most important left-wing thinkers, socialist thinkers of the beginning. In the beginning of the 20th century. She was born in 1871 in Poland, but she became a German naturalized citizen, and she was involved in the socialist movement after the First World War, in particular, before and after the First World War, and she was murdered in 1919. So this is really a biography. It's in black and white, and let me see here. It's quite text heavy. Can you see that? Yeah. So if that style is not your thing, you will probably not like it. And also it is, because it's the biography of a thinker and activist and politician, it's also quite politic heavy. And with that, I mean, there is some theoretical stuff in there about socialism, about Marxism, what Rosa Luxemburg's thoughts were. So if that is not your thing either, then this book is not for you. It's not for me, but I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was my first 5-star read of the year, finished on the 2nd of January. The second book I want to talk to you about that I read early in January was a reread. And that's another thing that I don't do often enough, rereading books. Beginning of each year, I promise myself I will reread more. I will pick books from my bookshelf that I really love, and then it sort of fizzles out in the course of the year. But at least I started the year with a good reread, and I reread a memoir, reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafizi, which was published in 2003. The book is set in the 1990s in Iran after the revolution, and women have to wear the veil. And Nafizi is a university professor. She teaches English, and over the course of a year, she invited a couple of female students, to her home and to discuss literature. So this is, as it's called, a memoir in books. She talks with the students about books, among others, about Lolita by Nabokov. But it's also a story about those women, those students who come to her house, a story about Nafisi herself. She left Iran in 1997, went to the US, and is now a professor there. And I love that. It's a combination of things that I love in memoirs. That it's about books, that it's set in a country that I have very little knowledge of, and that it's about young women. So yeah, I really love the reread, and maybe this means that this year will be a better year. I will do better rereading than I did in 2020. I think I reread 5 books or something. Yeah, yeah, shame on me. The next two are the first books in a project that I started in 2021, and that is the spotlight genre, science fiction. So, if you watched my goals video of 2021, you will know that I chose to focus on a genre. I mean, not exclusively, but that I will try to read each month some sci-fi, and especially modern classics or uh, uh, books by female authors that I haven't read yet. And the first one that I picked up is such a modern classic, and that is Lee Brackett, The Long Tomorrow, which was first published in 1955. And I knew Lee Brackett's name because she also wrote Hollywood scripts like The Big Sleep and things like that. But I've never read her sci-fi books, and she is called the Queen of the Space Opera. So I thought that's a good name, a good author to start. The Long Tomorrow is one of her most well known sci fi books, and it's set in a dystopian future after a nuclear fallout war, which led to a society that is completely averse to technology and perpetuates a lifestyle that we now know from Amish people or Mennonite groups. So very tech averse, very religious, self-sufficient. And then the book follows 2 young men, teenagers really, um, on their quest to find a hidden town, a secret town where people would still develop in a secret facility, would still develop technology. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't blown away. I didn't love it. It was a bit slow, too slow for me. It was the setting was interesting, and these characters, these 2 young men, boys first, and then young men, and we really follow their life. So the dystopian setting and the futuristic setting is really not much more than a background to the story of these 2 young men. So, in other words, if you take out the whole event, the nuclear fallout, nuclear war, then it could have been a book about 2 Amish boys wandering out into the technology world. So it's not 100% my kind of sci-fi, but I'm still really happy that I read it. And if you are more interested in these kind of very character heavy sci-fi, where the sci-fi situation, the sci-fi setting is more of a sort of background setting, then I can certainly recommend this one. The next book is technically not sci-fi but fantasy, but I'm still reading it for the genre spotlight sci-fi goal that I have for 2021, and that is A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. The reason is that I want to read more Ursula Le Guin, and I have never read her Earthsea series or cycle. So I thought I will focus on her sci-fi books. I rereading the Hainish cycle, but I thought at least I should give this, first in this very famous fantasy series a try. It was published in the mid 1960s, and of course Ursula Le Guin. I mean, she doesn't need an introduction. So this is the coming of age, I was going to say, but it's more the coming of wizard, of this famous Wizard of Earthsea, who became one of the most powerful wizards. And we follow him. His wizard name will be Jet, Ged. I think it's Jet and not Get, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. But in his youth, he was called Sparrowhawk, and we learn about, when he was a child and then an apprentice, and how he became the wizard that we then will encounter in later series. And I have to say, even though it's Ursula Le Guin, this kind of fantasy, this kind of really standard traditional fantasy, it's just not my thing. I mean, Ursula Le Guin, this was one of her first books. She is fantastic in world building. She can really set down a world, an other world, with whether it's in her sci-fi or whether it's in fantasy, with magic and a magic system, without ever being info dumpy. So that's fantastic. But the story of a wizard, it's just not my thing. So I mean, I'm happy that I finally read one of the Earthsea cycle books, the first one, but I'm not going to continue with the series with Ursula Le Guin. I will focus on her sci-fi. And the last book I want to talk to you about was my first translated work of fiction that I read this year, and that is Gratitude by Delphine de Vigan, translated from the French by George Miller. And I will put this down because this is a copy kindly sent to me by the publisher Bloomsbury for review. Thank you very much. And I will put up a picture of the actual cover. The book was just published 15th of January, 14th or 15th of January. So, and it is, I really, really enjoyed it. It's quite, as you could see, it's quite a slim book. And it's about Mishka, a very old lady who can't live by herself anymore because she's falling down, she's forgetting things. So she has to be moved to a nursing home. And her very young friend, Marie, in her early 30s, whom Mishka met when they both lived in the same house, and Marie was a little girl. I'm not going to spoil how they met and why Marie is still so fond of Mishka, because she visits her regularly. Mishka is losing her words, and there is a speech therapist who is trying to engage her in puzzles and word games in order for her brain to keep working on the words and keeping them as long as possible. There is not that much plot in this book, and I think the maybe the word games and the word choices, Mishka's word choices, which are not quite what they should be, maybe doesn't work as well in the English. It's sometimes a bit far-fetched, but this idea of this woman who has one final wish, so to speak, which I will not elaborate about, and losing yourself, and the question, what are we grateful for and why, it really hit me. It really hit me. And I think if you read the book or any other book with a similar topic, and you have older relatives or people in your social environment that who are getting old, losing the ability to walk or to talk or to remember things, the book will probably hit you just as it hit me. I thought it was very, very tender and very heartfelt, also heartbreaking at times. And I mean, the word enjoyment is probably sounds strange, but I Delphine de Vigan is one of my favorite contemporary French writers, so I was not surprised that I really liked this book. Anyway, so those were my couple of the first books that I read in 2021, and as I said, it was quite a good start. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope your start into the new year, reading-wise at least, was a good one. Looking forward to your comments as always. That won't change this year, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.